Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. Today, I am joined by a woman of many talents. She is a performer, she's a diversity consultant, and she's a music educator, Miss Katherine Washington. Katherine, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Of course, absolutely. So, Katherine and I have known each other for a little while, but this is actually the first time we've chatted. We've had conversations like on Facebook Messenger, but I'm so excited to have a conversation with you because I feel like we have so much in common.
Yeah, likewise. It's been a long time. I was telling Malynda, our worlds have kind of been orbiting one another for a while, and it's so nice to finally have crashed into you. So let's do it.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. I mean, I know you're a performer and I know you've gotten involved in activism, but let's talk a little bit about your performing background. Like, why did you choose music? Why did you choose musical theater? Where did that passion come from?
You know, these days I'm asking myself a lot of why did I choose that as well? So I grew up in North Carolina, and my parents actually. So I'm a preacher's kid, but my parents were also artists. Like, they met doing the Wiz. They traveled around with North Carolina Opera. So I grew up in a household where music was just all around me. And I think my first musical I saw was The Sound of Music. And I was like, ooh, Julie Andrews, what is this? I want to spin on hilltops. And then, they got me to do my first play when I was 8, and I was hooked. I never thought that I would pursue it seriously. I wanted to be a doctor. And I had a full ride scholarship for my first year of college. I was at an HBCU, and I wasn't happy. And my mom's like, why don't you audition for that school you were going to go to? And I was like, sure. And I got in. And then it was like, I guess I'm moving to Los Angeles and doing this for real. And then just never kind of looked back, because I feel very, very blessed to have been able to pursue my passion, what I love, and make that into a career. So it just kind of made sense when you sing and you play 6 instruments, and you can dance.
I love that. It's so funny you want to be a doctor, because I did want to be a pediatrician and I hate math. So I was like, well, this isn't going to happen. But I always just wanted to help kids. And so I also did music education and teaching music, performing arts school, and teaching kids. I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, because the whole math thing was just wasn't my friend.
It's funny. Math, I love math, and math is so music. See, well, all right. Should I see myself out?
There that goes.
Music is math for me, which is so it's what told me I told myself for the longest time, you're not a creative, you just do this, which we'll get into is so silly. But I also have found a way that what drew me to wanting to be a doctor was the passion of helping people. And you realize that that's a lot of school and a lot of money, and I'll go a different route.
That's so true, though. I mean, when you look at the trajectory of medical school and being a doctor, I'm like, this is 12 years. And then so I have a friend, she's also a Black female. She's an OBGYN. And I was like, thank you for going into this field, because that's another conversation. But when she told me, because she was in Chicago when I was in Chicago, she was like, yeah, it's kind of like a lottery figuring out where you go. I was like, oh no, I don't get to choose where I am. No, I'm so glad I didn't go. I would have been mad. I'm like, you're going to send me where? You're going to send me where? No, ma'am. No, thank you.
I'm good on Poughkeepsie.
Oh my gosh. So that's so funny. Okay. So as a performer, people always are like, oh, you bring a race into everything. However, race is a part of our life because
it applies.
Again, we could have conversations about so many things, but as a Black female, what has your experience been in terms of performing? How has it been a positive? How has it been a negative? How have you managed to navigate in a career that really is a white dominated space? Your personal experience.
My goodness. I love this question. I've been reflecting on this more and more. The ways in which it's been a positive. I think that because you don't often see a lot of people that look like you, because they're not often doing shows that require a lot of people that look like us, I quickly had to find this kind of self-confidence and see myself as, an individual, and not really being able to compare myself to other people.
Right.
So I thought. And so I think that, from the time I left school, I just kind of had this security in, okay, I am who I am. This is what I have to offer. I don't need to belt like that person. I'm not in competition with other Black women that I see at auditions. And I think that I have always been on this journey of just trying to guide myself based upon what feels authentic to me as an artist. So for a musical theater performer, usually you go to auditions and you see girls and they're like A-line dresses and their heels. And I'm like, I'm in my boots and my jeans and my fro is big. And 80% of my audition my audition book are guy songs. I just kind of do what I want in the audition room. And I confuse people. And I started saying that I confuse people. Yeah. They like it. So that's like been a plus of like really being able to find like ways to not fit a mold. I think I've seen some barriers shift. I won't say broken down. I did a production of the musical Once, I think 2 years ago. And for those of you who don't know, Once is a musical based upon this indie film that came out about 10 years ago. And
it's I can't believe it was that long ago, but that's also another conversation. Time is going by too fast, but yeah.
We're not aging. We're going to look this young forever. It's fine.
Absolutely.
But Once the musical, in it, all of the actors have to play instruments and move, and they're Irish or they're from the Czech Republic. I booked the show and I found out that I am the first Black woman, not only to ever play this role, the role of Reza, but to ever do a production of Once, ever. I always wanted to be the first Black woman to do something. So that's, cool things like that. How has it been a hindrance? I probably didn't realize this as strongly until we had this opportunity, this forced stop over the past year because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's the first time in 13 years, I moved to LA 13 years ago, that I had the opportunity to kind of stop and sit and reflect on all of the nonsense that I've had to endure over the past 13 years. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if I wanted anything to do with this industry anymore, mm-hmm. because I realized that I had been living kind of two separate versions of myself. There's the version of me within these predominantly white spaces that can be as outspoken as I can be, but not making white people uncomfortable, mm-hmm. or not jeopardizing my money, and which looks like a white director touching your hair on stage in front of everybody, and you're like, I can't. If I say something right now, then it's a whole thing, and I've embarrassed you, and it's, but I can wear my Trayvon Martin hoodie, and I can wear my African head wrap, and I can kind of cut my eyes at people whenever they're making jokes about blood diamonds. Oh, why? But my gosh. So there's that version of me, and then there's a version of me outside of these spaces that is so unapologetically Black. Like, you're my friend on social media. You see. I don't really believe in pacifying my feelings. So I had accepted these two separate versions of myself, never believing that they could fully merge. And I didn't know that I'd done that. And whenever I had the time to stop and realize that, didn't really sit with myself well. Through the gift that is prayer and therapy. I now am back on a plane where I realize I can't integrate and be myself all of the time. And that's the way that we have to move through the world moving forward. There is no other choice. And I hope you don't like it,
It's interesting that people don't realize how common it is, I would say even more so for Black women, to have to figure that out, to have to figure out how to stay true to yourself, but also stand up for yourself, but also make people feel comfortable, but also not allow people to walk on you, but also protect. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just this checklist that is so unbelievably exhausting, because you're right. You don't, for taking musical theater, for example, I mean, I can go back and talk about conversations that I've had with directors. I did a production of Dreamgirls, and I remember he was like, can you guys black it up a little? And I was like, okay, if nobody's going to say anything, am I going to be the one that says anything? Like, or are we all going to put our job into, like, ooh, that made me so upset. I can think about times in college where, like, I wasn't even in the production, but I was a part of the theater program, and they asked me to come and be a part of a performance because they needed to have me on stage for diversity. Literally, I'm sorry. I was used as a prop. So, like, in those moments, it's like, we have to think about all of the repercussions and the consequences of just simply standing up for ourselves and but also protecting our reputation, not being put into these stereotypes, of being the angry Black woman. But it's like, if the people were saying things to you as much as y'all are saying to us, you would be angry too. It's like, I am angry. I am angry because of all of the crap that you're constantly saying to us. So as a performer, I feel like it's almost enhanced a little bit because being an independent contractor, being an indie artist, being a like we're already like struggling to make a living. So like
Oh
you
my
don't want to
goodness.
jeopardize that in any way, shape, or form. So having to constantly think about those things in those spaces is really debilitating. But I do think that I've gotten to the point as well where I'm like, if I just don't care. I don't care.
Yeah,
I
I
can't.
can't. I can't. I can't. That caring about that was for like, my 20s, and now I'm 30.
You still look 20, girl. So
Thanks
that's
so
all that
much.
matters.
What I realize has been the trickiest part is not about like knowing what to say in the moment. It's about recognizing that there is like how to go about saying something, like this example of the director from my production of Once touching my hair. And the moment I'm just like was like, no, no, no. It wasn't until I got home that I was like, wait a second. And then you're angry with yourself,
Yeah.
but that's not something that you should have to carry, because you're like, that's not even who I am. And how did I, because you're surviving, or like your brain just can't quite catch up as much. And there's that whole journey of like self-diet or like self-depreciation that can like happen as a byproduct of this white supremacist society that we endure. And I've been reading a lot about the term imposter syndrome, right? How I guess that was only really ever supposed to apply to Black women, because I think a lot about what is the level of confidence, the level of like self-love that I would be able to maintain on a regular daily basis if I didn't have all these other messages of people telling me, you ain't nothing. You're not supposed to love yourself. It's like, it's the complete opposite of other people who are like, I just don't love trust myself. It's like, we would, if y'all would just leave us alone, we would be fine.
Just leave us alone. And it's so funny when I go back, I'm like, if you look historically, Black people have always been minding their own damn business.
That's it. Always. we don't care about y'all over there in your little world.
Only want to be left alone. I mean, I started watching this show on Amazon Prime, and then I quickly stopped because it was unbelievably triggering. Have you seen them?
Oh, I refuse.
I should have refused, but I did give it a couple of episodes, and I said, you know what? I want to support Black people, but I can't. I can't support this right now, and not because I don't want to support Black people. Obviously, I want to support any form of our story to be told. Of course, I'm a little exhausted by some. Like, I don't need another slavery movie.
Nobody needs another slavery movie.
Nobody.
To be clear, can I say that here?
Yes.
You don't need any. No, thank you. Goodbye.
We don't. We just don't. But the people that need to actually see that show will never watch it. And that's what's upsetting to me, is that we are making this content that to an extent does need to be seen, but the people that need to watch it are never going to. But the thing about that is that, it shines a light on white supremacy in the 50s and 60s, which I think people don't realize was not that long ago, was in the lifetime of my parents. They lived through all of this, right? They think that the only thing that happened to Black people was slavery. And that's like, stop. Just please stop. After 1865, everything was not just fine and dandy. But the thing that was horrifying about it was how realistic it was, one, but two, Black people, it's basically a Black family moved into an all-white neighborhood, right? And these white people felt immediately threatened for no reason. No reason. And that's my whole thing, is like, they started bothering them. They started just doing all these things to them to try to run them out of the neighborhood, when that Black family did nothing. All they did was exist. And that's the problem that is so frustrating, is that Black people simply existing bothers people. I just had a conversation with someone who's tried to say, people need to, on both sides just need to have a conversation, which I'm fully in agreement with. I think the more people that have conversations, the more people will start to understand. There could be a little bit of shift in understanding. But one of the things that this person said was that, when a cop stops somebody, and let's say there's a Black guy in the car, the Black guy is scared. And I was like, yes. He's like, but the cop is also scared too. And I said, let me stop you there. Because the cop's fear is irrational. He is afraid of our skin color. We're afraid because we think that we're going to die and they have a gun. So this whole perception and this whole attitude towards Black people and just the color of our skin, I mean, it goes back to the beginning of time, but we always just wanted to be left alone.
That's it. Just kind of live. Simple. Yeah, and I think you were just saying about these conversations that we're having. Like, I absolutely agree. I think that it's the only way for like cross-pollination to happen, of ideas and like shared understanding. I also am a believer that I don't want Black people to feel obligated to love people who are actively engaged in their oppression, right? And so it's a,
right.
It's a matter of finding that balance of yes, these conversations should happen, and like who should be having these conversations with and what do those conversations look like and with who, because are you familiar with this idea of like the spectrum of allies?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've been watching a lot of, I'm going to plug here, The Next Question, hosted by Austin Channing Brown, Chichi Oklu.
Love her.
Oh my God, so good. And they had Andre Henry on, and he was talking about the spectrum of allies. And so, all the way over here, you've got like your Richard Spencers, your David Dukes. And then on the opposite end, you've got like the leading like Black thought leaders and activists. And so you've got active oppressors, neutrals, passive supporters, and then, all the way back over here. Mm-hmm. And so it's about targeting like, where do you fall on the spectrum? And then where is it your responsibility to be targeting and talking to people on the spectrum? Because if you enjoy engaging with like passive oppressors who are not the people who are going to burn the cross, but are going to be like, is it my responsibility to stop people to burn the cross? It's like those people can be your most potent witnesses if you can reach them. But I'm not trying to talk to the passive oppressors. I'm trying to reach my white liberal friends who are the passive supporters who are like, we support you. We're with you. Here's your black box.
But then they still allow their racist family members to comment on all of their Facebook threads. Those are the people that are worst.
Exactly. Exactly.
If you just don't like me because I'm Black, whatever. I'm not going to talk to you. We have nothing in common. Like, it's just not going to change. But if you could call yourself an ally, you call yourself an advocate, but you are so afraid of offending your racist aunt that just said, oh, you still have a colored friend or whatever, and you don't call her out on that. I'm sure that's happened. It hasn't happened to me, but I'm just saying, then you are actually worse.
You are the problem. It's performative.
Yeah.
It's your only goal is to separate yourself from the bad whites over there. You're trying to get off this like spectrum of like whiteness that you can't escape. You are on that spectrum and you need to hold yourself accountable. I don't want you posting all these articles and hashtags, the articles that you don't read. I don't want.
You read the title and you're like, oh, this is good. This will make me look good.
This is cool. Right. I don't want to see you wearing a safety pin to tell me you're an ally. I want you to walk the walk, or, you don't have to. You don't have to care about this. But like, we all have that personal responsibility, a moral obligation and a commitment to see through every single day. And what does that look like for you? And commit to that. And if it doesn't look like what it looks like to me, that's fine. But let's be intellectually honest with one another. Yes. Let's not say, oh my God, like I really support you. It's like you're scared of your parents. Wow.
You're like, no.
If this is what support looks like, I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, and I've talked about this on the show before, but somebody posted on Facebook, or maybe it was Twitter, but it was so well thought out and well explained about the difference between how white people and Black people, or just people of color in general, approach uncomfortable situations. And white people in general have been taught not to have confrontation whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So when anything makes them uncomfortable, they're taught to just kind of retreat and not deal with the situation because they're taught to keep the peace, which is so funny to me. But so when you, as a person of color, or specifically, I'm going to say Black women, because that's what we are and that's how we obviously approach everything. So let's say a Black woman brings up a problem to a white person, and the reason that they become the victim is because, and they think that you're the aggressor, they think that you're being to this, to that, when you're the one that offended them or whatever. The reason they respond that way is because they've never been taught how to deal with conflict. Mm-hmm. So even as a Black woman, I'm just communicating with you what the issue is and how to solve the problem or what you need to do. But you automatically see a red flag, like, oh my God, why are you yelling at me? Why are you being so aggressive? Oh my God, I didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm just talking to you, first of all.
Yeah.
But
like, could you like say it nicer?
Right, exactly. And so when it comes to talking to their white parents or their white aunts or their white friends that are clearly racist, they don't know how to deal with that conflict because they've never been taught how. So it makes them uncomfortable and they would rather keep the peace than worry about offending them when they don't realize they are offending every Black person that they claim to be friends with by not standing up to them.
Every single time. And they're doing themselves a disservice in the process because, like, I mean, conflict resolution is something that we should all, learn how to manage and be able to clearly articulate what our needs are. Being open to receiving what other people's needs are. It's like, you can't say, like, say it to me nicer. It's like, the issue is not how I'm saying it. The issue is that I'm saying it. And that's the problem.
Yes.
And we all have to be adults. We've all got to be adults here. And I think that getting uncomfortable is kind of where you're supposed to be. I think that if people are searching for comfort, at least as it relates to any sort of anti-racism work, if you're comfortable, you're probably not doing the work. Like, I have to allow myself to get uncomfortable every day, because otherwise you just get complacent. And what is on the other side of that is learning something, which is extremely exciting, because I want to continue to learn and to grow, and also the opportunity to be a better human.
Yes.
The opportunity to be a better human in this world for other humans, the people that you truly claim to love and to care about, and these values. I don't understand what is so scary about going down that path, except, the
reward is greater than the risk.
Yeah, every time.
Plain and simple. It is.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your activism. When did you really start getting involved? When did you form Hope Collective? Like, talk about all of that.
Okay, so I was thinking a lot about this, and I'm like, what has this trajectory been? I'm going to jump all the way back to 23 when I started dating my now husband, Zach. He is.
Wait, how long have you been married?
I've been.
Because I'm old too in that sense.
I'm trying to keep him.
I just told this is a total digression, because I just learned what like some terms were that are on like online dating, and I've been with my husband since I was 23. So, and we got married at 25, and I'm like, what is this online dating? Like,
oh my goodness. Oh, right. I'm just like, I've never seen a Tinder. I have my friends. I'm just like, let me see. What does it look like? How does it? Missed all of that. I did a little OkCupid, and we've been together for 8 years.
Okay.
We've been married, I think, almost 4. He's gonna hear this and he's gonna look at me and shake his head. He's the one who knows all the numbers, and I'm like,
but still, 8 years is a long time. Like, you dodged a lot of those bullets.
And thankfully, but also lots of the bullets, like the call was coming from inside the house, it's my husband, audience members. My husband is a white man from Montana. Lovely person, lovely, also a preacher's kid, but you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And so everyone looks at interracial relationships and it's like, oh my goodness, you guys are the future. And I'm just like, that's really not how that works. You can't copulate your way out of racism. Like, that's just not how the world is set up.
We will talk about that. I didn't want to digress, but I was just like, oh, she's been with her husband as long as I have. But I do want to go back to that. But continue your trajectory for activism.
When we first started meeting at 23 years old, this was around the time of the Ferguson uprising, but I think like slightly before. And I remember we built this pillow fort, and we're sitting there and we're talking, we're laughing, and I don't remember where it came from. And all of a sudden I said, I just feel like if I were white, I'd be pretty. And I caught myself. No idea where that thought lived. Never thought it to myself. Never had a problem with my face. I was like, my face is fine. Like, it's, it's a good face. Like,
she's gorgeous, by the way. You guys cannot see her. She's absolutely beautiful, but keep going. I've been there, so
I burst out crying because here's this white man looking at me like, well, I don't know what to do with this. But 2, I did not know where that came from. Wow. And that is what I define as kind of my moment of awakening. I'm really grateful that, the self-awareness was there for me to be able to realize it's not that you hate yourself. Maybe there's a little part of that, but really what this is who put this thought here? How did this get in here? And baby girl, I think it's time for you as an adult to start unpacking what does your Blackness mean to you? Yeah. How are you viewed in relation to that? What is really going on out here in the world? And that sent me down this journey of self-discovery, of self-love, of falling in love with my culture and my people. And this was around the same time as the Ferguson uprising. And I'm staying up till like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, watching the live Twitter feeds and saying, what is going on? We've been told that this stuff is over, and like we've known that that's not been the case, but I'm seeing like, how are we militarizing against our own people? So I've been on this journey of at least talking about race, being very vocally talking to white people about race, and really just for the sake of my own survival for years now. But the activism part of it didn't really start up until, say, the past 2-3 years of realizing that there's a responsibility to do more, because we all have a responsibility to do more. Occupying predominantly white spaces and just talking to white people about racism as it relates to entertainment is just not enough. I saw a post yesterday that I pulled a quote from. There's this journalist called Slauson Girl. Everyone go follow her on Instagram. She wrote, liberal white academia is ruling the conversation about racism and white supremacy. It gives people talking points while my people are still getting murdered by police and each other, while you are online listening to people string nice sentences together to mentally massage you. What's the plan to stop this genocide against my people? And as a journalist, but a concerned, involved community member, this message is also to myself. And that hit me. And I'm just like, yes, that is literally why I started doing this work. I started getting more involved. I was working with Mutual Aid LA, and I was finding volunteer opportunities wherever I could. And especially once the pandemic started, I got hardcore into organizing work. The Hope Collective kind of was birthed from that. I started working with this group that was organizing against Amazon. And then from that, we started pulling out, finding these cases of pregnant women that were being discriminated against at Amazon, and like doing work for that. And just finding that I was hopping kind of from like collective to collective, and with my skill set working in production that I always thought didn't translate outside of the entertainment industry. Turns out Mama's a really good organizer because she loves organization. I love being able to be in a position to connect other activists and organizers with the tangible resources that they need. And as I've seen it here in Los Angeles, lots of folks within the movement, it's a lot of like, hey, there's something going on. We've got like a week or two, we'll toss it together, and people will be there, and we'll put out the news. And that is like absolutely effective in lots of ways. But through the Hope Collective, Emily, my business partner, and I have been showing people what intentional planning looks like, and taking your time and writing things down, and really intentional community building, that it's not just about the action, the event, that lead up process allows you to really make and establish connections with your community as a whole, and see what it's like to be in collaboration with other people, which can be tricky, but it's necessary, because again, our fates are hinged to one another, and we can't just all be out here working in our own little pockets. Like, work smarter, not harder.
Yes,
is kind of my philosophy. So yeah, that's essentially what the Hope Collective does. Did I answer the question?
You did. You did. You're so funny. I'm the same way whenever I do interviews or have interviews. I'm like, I really hope I answer your question, because I just thought it, but you completely did. And I love that. What fueled you to want to start this? I will say though, I almost wish, I love organizations, obviously, like, don't get me wrong. I almost wish there just wasn't a need to always have to start something in order to make a difference, because we should still be trying to make a difference. And to kind of capitalizing on that point, when you said that you were the first Black person to be cast in that show, I'm tired of us being firsts. It's 2021. We're still having Black firsts. That's exhausting. Now, it's incredible. You're making history. I love people that make history. I love, especially when it's people of color, and specifically Black women that make history. But the fact that we are still having firsts
is crazy. That's crazy. When's the last time a white person was the first to do something? the first to actually break through like do the I don't know.
And that's what's
It's been a
crazy
while.
to me. And so when people like look at things like white privilege and opportunities, like the fact that we're still having first should show you. And it's not because Black people are lazy. It is not because people of color aren't trying. It's because you finally decided, okay, we're going to let you go through.
Yeah. I guess we'll open this gate, but only if I mean we've got space in the club for two. We got two. We got two Black people out there. Okay, we'll take that one. And no, you're too dark. Let's take
It's
this
like
one
when
over
Obama
here.
became president, people thought that racism was eradicated. It's like, no. Racism actually is coming to a head right now because everybody is showing their whole ass right
When
now
we
because we
saw
have
it,
a Black president. It didn't
and
change anything. It put a spotlight
that
on
was
it.
the one thing about like the need to start the Hope Collective and like us realizing that what was something different that we could try to offer, not that this isn't already happening, but for example, so we helped organize a direct action in DC last year. And through, even though I do not live there, I live in Los Angeles. My business partner Emily lives in Ohio. We helped organize this direct action, and there's a group there called the Palm Collective, and it's a grouping of like 67 different organizations that work together and have built power and are actually like pushing and keeping applying that pressure. And I was like, that's something that I would hope that the Hope Collective can grow into, because it's never the goal is not for us to build something new. Like what's the saying? It's like, you don't need to build it. It already exists.
Yeah.
It's the same as you don't need to be a voice for the voiceless, just pass the microphone. And so for us, recognizing, okay, if I could go and do this thing in DC and I'm working with my business partner who doesn't even live here, where's the need in my own community? What am I doing here as it relates to my own city and like in my own neck of the woods? And there are people who've been doing incredible work for decades longer than what I've been doing this for like 8 years. People have been doing this work and they deserve our support and our amplification and our dollars and our time and our devotion. And that's what the Hope Collective is seeking to do, not to do anything other than, just kind of linking these people, like you should be working with them and how can we boost your efforts and get people to care and like redirect. This is the longest I've talked about myself in like the past year. And it's kind of weird, but it's been nice to not have it be, especially as a performer. It's like, usually it's, what am I going to do and how am I going to get through? And that's never been how it's supposed to be anyway. Like, how can I direct people to who they should be listening to? Because anything I say here, Angela Davis has probably said it 10 times better than me.
But it's good to reiterate. And I think that also within our community as a whole, we still have not gotten to the point where we realize how powerful we are and what we have the ability to do. So when we're all uplifting each other, specifically with Black owned businesses, with, things like the Hope Collective, with different organizations, like we can make a huge difference. We just have to recognize our power. We're getting there. We're not there yet. But, when you've been oppressed for 400 years and be told that you're not worth anything and you have no value, and you have situations constantly that show that people think that Black lives don't matter, why would you try? I get it. But we got to move forward. We just got to push.
I've been saying this past year and last year. It's supposed to be last year, but especially this past year is all about escaping the white gaze, not doing things that are for the sake of informing white people about my perspective, or even worrying about will they get it? No, get into it, because whenever I'm not thinking about y'all, like it's the same way that Toni Morrison likes to write. She said, she created stories where whiteness was periphery. And I'm like, that is how I live my life, until my husband comes home. But that's how I live, my life. And I'm like, that's how I think that is where I'm at right now, with guiding all of my intentions on what is done whenever we remove whiteness from the equation and focus on building and supporting and just like the love, because there's so much happening over here, and it's little echo chambers of transformation. I think we are getting there.
For sure. How do you manage to navigate your pro-Blackness while being in an interracial relationship? Because I know, and I get it all the time, and it, especially just, having a following and having, fans or people follow you online and stuff and make comments like, well, if you're this, your husband's white, and you know what I mean? But how have you managed to navigate that? Because I get so annoyed by people thinking that you can't be pro-Black and be in an interracial relationship. I fell in love with who I fell in love, and that's just my business. That has nothing to do with my identity. And you're also saying that my husband being white is what my identity is as well, and it's not. And that's BS. You're literally saying that who I am with controls who I am. I could go off on this, but I need to let you talk,
I know you can. I know you can.
So how have you managed to navigate that? Because this isn't about me right now.
Really, Malynda, it's that part that you just said where you realize that people making these statements are reducing your identity down to a Black woman with a white man. And we don't do that with everyone else. We don't. We'll make little cute jokes about like, oh, Black men ain't really been checking for Black women since, I don't know, 1993, which is also not true. Right. I think like Black love is beautiful. I wish I could have used hashtag Black love for like my wedding photos. Didn't quite apply, half and half. But I had to get over that early on, realizing that like people for some reason will insist on diminishing my Blackness, my entirety of my being and my identity and how proudly I claim it simply because of this. If they'll do this because I'm married to a white man without the white man in the picture, they're going to do it because of something else.
Yes.
That is literally the struggle that is being a Black woman. And so I have to pay it. No, never mind. And it doesn't happen, as much. The navigating of the stuff with like the family, having white in-laws is a lot harder than the outside messaging. But like, I remember, so, occasionally I'll see like white guys or Black guys in public just kind of look at me and shake their head. And I'm like, what? What are you shaking your head at? You have a white girlfriend. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh. But seriously, but also it's like I've gotten the like, oh, you're playing for the wrong team or why'd you do? It's like, where were you?
Yeah.
Where were you?
Here.
You weren't
not
around.
liking me.
You exactly. You weren't around, and if you were, you did not like me. But now that you have a problem with, this is interesting. I saw a TikTok, and I'm really curious your thoughts on this because I was like, oh, this girl. She's an Asian American woman, and she said, "Can we talk about how our men of color and white women
are the same?
Actually the same."
Oh yes, I've seen this
one. It snatched me. It snatched me because I was like, oh. And when she explained it, it was so clear because there is this, I don't even know the right word, but the comparison was so spot on just in how Black women are treated when it comes to white women, when it comes to Black men. I'm just, because that's our community. And I was like, wow. That is such an accurate description.
And whenever you have,
and I love Black men. I want to make that clear. I love Black men. My father's a Black man. I have Black brothers. I love Black men.
I just love them in general. I see them and I'm like, hi, King.
Right. I mean, give me a Michael B. Jordan any day of the week. But you know what I mean? But when she said that, in the experiences I've had and in the responses that I've had to being in an interracial relationship or just being a Black woman in general, my interactions with Black men and white women have on base pretty much been similar.
Yeah. And also I'm going to toss cis gay men and white gay men in there as well. Like those have been the three groups that she was talking about. And it's been fairly identical, but having it broken down, realizing that whenever you are one step down from the majority class and you're just wanting to assume that power, and therefore you can't recognize that you still have privilege, you're literally just one step away. And so actually you benefit from crapping on us down here. Whenever you recognize that, and I'm just like, well, I'm just not, whenever this comes up, I just know not to pay this. No, never mind. Because this is nonsense. I don't get this from my sisters. I don't get this from my queer community. I don't get like, this is something entirely different. And so
it's the oppressed finding a way to be oppressors so that they can survive.
Yeah, and I'm like, are we all abolitionists? What's happening here? I'm gonna need you to go read a little more. Yeah, it was definitely tricky earlier on, but I would also credit that more to being on 23 years old and being on this journey of my Blackness while also someone witnessing that. And also that's meant that he was going to have to get a crash course in the things that he did not know as well. And there have been moments that I'm sure have not felt very comfortable for him being with me, but I can't be less of myself. If I can't be less of myself whenever I'm in those performance spaces, I can't be less of myself at home. I can't be less of myself when I'm with myself. I have to be my full self.
Yes.
And, he likes it. And people who don't understand the dynamic, I don't really care. I don't really care because I'm not going to be ashamed of my life and my love. Amen. I know here with me and my little head wrap and my gap in my teeth and my dark cocoa skin, like any less black, no.
You got to own it because your black is beautiful. You got to own it.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Amen. So let's talk about this event that you have coming up and how people can get involved and what it is and what's it about and why you decided to do it now.
Okay. All right. So this event that we have coming up, May 2nd, 2021, Pan Pacific Park, 12 p.m. We're having a rally and a march titled Black Women, period. The idea of this, I was brought in to lend support, and then it turns out it was at the planning stages. And so, I just kind of swooped in with like my eye for detail, and we've really grown this thing, realizing that as Black women, we are often hearing, protect Black women, listen to Black women.
Yeah.
From the mouths of anyone other than Black women. And, other people are speaking for us often. It's almost like whenever we say it, they can't handle it because it's too much of a mirror. And the same way that like those black squares this past summer made me roll my eyes. And I'm just like, I want to believe the intention is good, but like, what does this even mean? Like, who started this? Where did it come from? What is this doing? Right. It's like in the same way that like some people, hashtag Black Lives Matter. I'm just like, you don't really mean that. I feel extremely similarly whenever I see hashtag protect Black women, because you can't even seem to do that lots of times, these people with the Black women in their lives. And so the idea was how to take that and make that more than just a hashtag. How do we make this a lived reality? How do we come together and call in our community and in a way that we could create a space that promotes healing and harmony, but also giving people targeted calls to action. So when they walk away from this event on May 5th, from all these different topics that disproportionately affect Black women, so poverty and houselessness, access to mental health care, violence, disproportionate rates of violence, and all of these different areas, the ways that we are policed within the education system. I was like, how can we leave people with tangible and targeted calls to action so that no matter where you exist in the world, whether you're an educator or you're a doctor or you're an artist, you can walk away and say, okay, I heard something today and now I know where I need to go, where the need is, and where I can immediately lock in and support. On top of that, we also wanted to make sure that and bringing ourselves together, that we're bringing in the community and finding a way to uplift where the need is. And so we are fundraising for Care Block, which is a mutual aid organization here. And I guess we're kind of partly inspired by their mission of they go where the need is. And so they provide like safety gear for protesters. They've started a community garden. They do food giveaways. They do so many different things. And because they do so much for the community, we knew that we wanted to boost them. And we don't want to take any dollars. We don't need to fundraise for our efforts. We just need to plan this thing. So where can we direct people and say, hey, go and give them your money, because they are doing the work that we aren't committing to doing on a regular basis. And so we are so excited about this event. Really just wanting to center and uplift and amplify Black women and also our genderqueer comrades, because not all people who experience anti-Black misogyny identify as women. And so making sure that that is also on our radar in terms of messaging. And I'm really excited. We're splicing in performances around our speakers. We haven't quite announced our speakers yet. There is one that I do want to shout out because she is confirmed. Her name is Kiana Selena, and she works with the Coalition for Community Control Over the Police. She's a grassroots organizer, and she does incredible work, and she works with impact families who have, experienced loss and trauma due to police brutality and social injustice. Kiana right now is doing really great work. Specifically, I want to shout out for people who aren't aware of this, my Kiona Johnson, she's been working with her family. My Kiona Johnson was, I'm going to get emotional. A 23-year-old mother of two who went missing last September. Around 96th and Gramercy, her body was found in the backseat of her car about a week later. And even though the cause of her death is listed as undetermined pending investigation, the LAPD has closed this case for not enough leads. And, you know, statistically, like Black women are murdered every 8 hours in the US. Wow. Every 8 hours. It's the leading cause of death for Black women and girls ages 15 to 24. And our cases go uninvestigated or unsolved because police departments, they don't care. They do not care. And so I just wanted to make sure that I spoke on Kiana and my Kiona's case. Please, if you're not familiar with it, please go look up and do more of this and just inform yourselves and figure out how you can go to the My Kiona Johnson Foundation on Instagram to find out more. I know her family is going to need a lot of support from us financially, just our attention on there, making calls for the LAPD to open back up that case. And reasons like that are the reasons why we're doing this, because we will not let ourselves go quietly into the dark.
That's why we say Black Lives Matter, because this country has yet to show that they value Black lives in any way, shape, or form. So this is why this is important. Thank you so much, Katherine. Let everybody know where they can follow you and where they can make sure they get the information for the event.
Yes, for the event, you can follow me on Instagram at Daughter of Asada, like Asada Shakur. That's Daughter of Asada on Instagram. And also the Hope Collective is at Let's Make Hope on Instagram, and also on Twitter, Let's Make Hope 20 or at K Washington 3. You should probably just find me on Instagram. It's easier.
I love that. Make sure you follow her in the Hope Collective, and we'll post all the information for the event on May 2nd. Katherine, thank you so much for chatting with me. It was a pleasure. We could probably talk for 3.5 hours, I'm sure, if not longer.
We will.
We will. We're going to get coffee now that we're hopefully inching out of this pandemic. So
I'm double vaccinated, girl. Get at me.
Yeah, same. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe to We Need to Talk, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.